Hey there. Can I say something a little bit uncomfortable? What if the traits that have made you successful in the first part of your life are actually going to keep you trapped in the second half? If you're the woman or the man that everyone depends upon, the emotionally intelligent one, the one who figures everything out, the one who remembers everything, the one who handles things before they even happen because you're always dialed in to what's going on in the room. If you're that person, let's call you Sheila. Our company avatar here is named Sheila, and she's a high performing person. She may be a solopreneur, she may be a CEO, she may be a mom, she may be a lot of different things. But one thing for sure is that Sheila cares, and I know that you do too, as do I. But what happens when competence is performed beautifully until it becomes identity? What if identity can become architecture and then that architecture becomes like a cage? Let's talk about Sheila a little bit more. She's smart, she's dependable, people trust her, people rely on her, her family and everybody around her, her company, everybody relies on her because she's always getting things done. And she performs this competence beautifully. People assume she's fine. But what people don't often see is what's going on inside of her. A lot of times, people like Sheila carry an invisible load. What does that look like? Well, it often looks like hypervigilance, buffering other people's emotions. This invisible load means that you sort of have 5 tabs open, or 10 or 20 at all times. There's a feeling that you can't ever fully exhale, right? And there's a subtle guilt when you finally go to sit down for even a moment. You might not even at this point be able to receive help from other people because it feels uncomfortable. There may be a quiet belief too, and you may not be wrong, which is the scary part. What if I don't handle it and everything goes wrong? You get used to handling everything because if you don't, who will? So here's where it gets interesting. Research on chronic stress and allolistic load shows that these neurological changes can become permanent over time. So if Sheila is overperforming constantly and carrying this invisible load, carrying everything, this may become something that actually feels normal. It becomes a habit. And this affects decision making, emotional flexibility, stress recovery, executive function, and even how safe stillness feels. And that matters because with high functioning people, they assume that if they understand the problem, they should be able to fix it. But awareness and implementation are not whatsoever the same thing. Knowing is cortical. It's a rational understanding, but repatterning these things is physiological. And that's a big misunderstanding. A lot of people think that because they understand a problem, that it's going to be fixed. But you have to have a system to actually unlock the place where those habits are stored in the physiology and repattern it. Not because you're weak, not because you lack discipline, not because any of those things like moral failure, but we often blame ourselves for not being able to change. And I'm afraid that other people tend to blame us too. Like the woman I mentioned the other night who was lecturing everyone on how she was able to stop eating after 6 o'clock and she lost 50 pounds. And we're all looking at her like, girl, I want ice cream at 12 o'clock every day of my life. And the only way I get through that is by having some amount of discipline. Where does that discipline come from? What's right before discipline? Regulation. You have to learn how to self-regulate. That's always going to be step one in finding the force. All right. So in my doctoral work, I discovered that new patterns, new habits, actual integration, none of that actually lands unless you're regulated. The way the nervous system actually functions is science. But oftentimes people haven't put two and two together. Like yoga practitioners know that they need to do breath work as they're doing their sun salutations. Martial artists almost always warm up with some sort of breath work or some kind of motion that focuses them, right? I am one with the force and the force is one with me, right? So here's the thing is people know it in practice, and in a lot of native traditions it's the same thing. Regulation always comes first, okay? And when we get into a coherent state of mind, we're able to find the force. But the next step is actually getting into the body and feeling comfortable in it. So that's why we created this particular lotus reset. All right. Again, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm explaining what it's about. We can work with you online. We can work one on one. We can do all kinds of things if you're interested in this material. But I'm going to use the Lotus Reset and Sheila as an example for what we actually do in order to help people change these neurological patterns. Because we need to interrupt the chronic overfunctioning. We need to interrupt the inner invisible energy leaks. We have to find a place to regulate the nervous system. We need to practice these internal responses and rehearse them, okay? And see a sort of scientific readout like on the heart math monitors so we can put two and two together because this inner manual is invisible, all right? Whatever is under the hood here in the Cadillac, all right, is often a mystery. I told the story the other day of how when I was 16, I bought a car and no one took the time to teach me about anything. Nobody understood that I wasn't born with knowledge of cars, and human beings weren't born with knowledge of how our neurology works because we can't see inside of us. But nowadays we have an actual map, just like I finally learned that if I didn't change the oil on the car, it would blow a head gasket. And that's sort of what's happening to people nowadays, especially the Sheilas of the world who are already carrying this huge invisible load, is things are starting to get too high RPM. Things are starting to come unhinged, all right? Because people are under too much chronic stress. So with a Lotus Reset, the first thing we do is we teach you how to regulate yourselves and we show it on a monitor, all right? So that way you can put two and two together and see what's under the hood. The next thing that we do is orientation. We get people into their bodies and we give them an actual map and a way to explore their inner terrain. I was looking for my telescope so I could use it as a prop, but I'll use it in the next one. You need to have a map and a compass for this rocky inner terrain that we need to get into in order to see where those patterns are. All right. The third thing is the pattern recognition. We don't start exhuming old feelings until we actually are regulated because the state of regulation that you're in or not in vastly changes how you perceive the world. If someone is triggered, their entire neurology is in the service of self-preservation. And that's a 0-1 kind of configuration, winner, loser, winner takes all, loser dies. So when someone is triggered and they're aroused in their lizard brain neurology, fight, flight, then they're not seeing the world clearly. And all of these higher functions are hijacked in the service of the agenda of keeping you safe and keeping you alive. And the ego, the lizard brain, doesn't care whether you're happy or not. It doesn't care whether you're healthy or not long term. It's not tracking that. It's tracking your survival in the moment. So if you have been under this stress of carrying an invisible load for many, many years, and you've been doing that so gracefully, Sheila, well, it could be you and me, then we have to actually have a full reset. And that's what this 2-day sequence is about. If we do it on Zoom, then you have to have journaling techniques and a sort of level of commitment to doing this on your own. It's great when you have me in person because we'll actually do it together. When you do this a few times, you'll definitely notice the difference. So I don't want to get into too much of the mechanics of it, but let me tell you for sure, what you need is an actual nervous system reset, complete reboot, oil change, liquids, tire realignment, all of it, and then a map of where you actually want to go. The other thing about Sheila is she might not have asked herself in a really long time what she actually wants for herself. In fact, she might have forgotten who she truly is. So, in video 3, which is coming next, we're going to talk a little bit more about these solutions so that I'm not leaving you stranded with this mountain of worry that you're already carrying and like no hope about getting out from under it. There's a very specific way to do it. And the great news is, once you have these techniques, this sort of like user's manual for human life and consciousness and the body and all of this, it's an intricate maze that we're walking through in this life. It's not easy to figure out. So I've put this together for you, and I want to talk a little bit more about it tomorrow. Either way, if you're interested in this, book a call with me. If you want to know more about the retreat, scroll to the bottom and you can see all of the information there. Thanks a lot for listening, and I hope you're having a great Memorial Day weekend.